To get started, I'd like to do is get an idea of who my audience is. And so what I'd like to do is go around the room. First, I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'd like to get an idea of who's who in the room. I'm Joel Robe. I'm the Director of Data Management at Oregon Department of Ed. And I'm here because I'm hoping that I can convince you that this application is not quite sliced bread, but pretty darn good. So if you could give me your name, your position, and maybe a little about why you're here. Can we start here?
Oh boy.
See, I told you that sitting up front is.
I'm Joanne Ladd. I'm from the Sheridan School District. I am Special Program Secretary. I'm here because our superintendent thinks this is a good thing.
And it's okay if you say, I'm here because I was told to come here.
No, we gotta leave for the day. That's a good thing.
Okay.
My name's Penny Elliott. I'm the district secretary, and the superintendent said,
Go. Okay.
Kathy Barrier, Sheridan High School Student Services Registrar.
Okay.
And I'm here because of to be here and learn. Excellent. Handouts up there.
Thank you. I'm Tammy Peters, Baltimore Catholic School, Student Services, and I'm here to learn.
Did you learn or see what it's about, huh?
Denise Heron, Office Manager at Jefferson Middle School in Jefferson, and here I help a lot with data entry.
Excellent, yeah. Good for you. This will be good. You like this. Nick?
Scott Windenberger, Principal, Jefferson Middle School. I'm here because Denise told me to be here.
Hey, she wanted somebody to figure it out, huh? To say, what's this all about?
Ben Merrill, John F. Kennedy High School, and just want to learn more about this. And so
Okay.
I'll help.
Okay.
I'm Carol McKenna, I'm the high school counselor, and I'm here because I was told to be, but more importantly, because the Oregon University system, I want to learn how we can get our transcript information to them easier.
We have Lisa from Oregon University here, so we'll get a lot from her. Next.
I'm Kevin Ortega, counselor at Nottingham Middle School, and I'm here. It's been frustrating to have students enroll in my school that I can't see their test results for.
Historical assessment data, right. You'll get that. Okay.
Ken Stott from Jervis School District, and I play with data. So
Yeah.
I'm here to play with data.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I do the same thing. And it's,
Rex Hoffman, counselor at Central Inn High School, and I'm also similar to his, looking for data on students that come in. Trying to
great.
some of that data.
Excellent. Excellent.
I'm Julie Moore, I'm the head secretary at Amity High School, and I'm enrolling kids and need to get their students.
Need to know the information before you enroll them.
I'm Cindy Brokaw from Cascade High School, and I'm registrar.
Great.
David Weatherburn, Woodburn School District. I work at the Welcome Center where we register students.
Excellent.
Liliana Heller-Mafica, Woodburn School District, Welcome Center Registration.
Excellent.
Cynthia, Woodburn School District, program secretary / data administrator.
I see. Now I see the relation of how you knew Robin and that. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm Jovi Duwan from the Dallas School District. I'm a counselor. I want to know how to send transcripts without making up money.
Okay, we'll show you.
Pam Danville, Dallas High School. I'm secretary in the counseling department. I work with OSTX and all the colleges, so it's the transcript.
There you go. Okay. Okay. Excellent.
Shannon Badger, Register of Delta.
Okay. Who's back here? Oh. And Lisa is the gal who handles all the transcript stuff when it gets up to OUS. All right. Today we're going to talk about OSTX. I'm going to give you an overview, and then we're going to actually, as part of this, if you haven't already logged in, excuse me, I'm going to back up a second. Whoops. Please, hopefully you can see this. If not, ask your neighbor to check theirs, or maybe Robin, you can see if they're, help them if someone looks lost. We get logged onto this site. That's our training site. We're going to let you actually go in and work with the application. So we're going to talk about the data that you're seeing here when you use this application. We're going to learn the actual application and then where you get support depending on what issue you're working on, whether it's a data, application issue, whatever. So as we go through this, if you have any questions at all, stop me. Don't think you have to wait till the presentation is done. We want everybody to understand what's going on. So here's what OSTX. It was developed at the request of the legislature to allow schools to move data, or not move, but access data of students that are coming in and enrolling in your school. So initially, that's what the legislator wanted. They wanted us to be able to provide them with a easy way for them, for the registrars and the folks in the schools to get access to the students' data so that they could immediately get them into the courses, get them going in the right courses, and then have that information available to school personnel. While we were doing this and developing this, we got the Oregon University system and us started working together. And one of the things that they asked us to do is to work on getting the ability to allow transcripts to be sent up to them from any high school in the state. They have a system in place right now called IDTS, and Lisa can tell you what that probably means, something data transfer system. Integrated data transfer system. And that system is slowly going away, and this will replace it. So the more important things to remember about OSTX is, well, there's a couple more besides this, but it provides immediate access to student data. So if I'm in school A and going to school B can immediately see data necessary to get them enrolled and scheduled if they're needing schedules. So, and then the other thing is it provides the ability to do send the transcripts up. But the thing you have to understand about OSTX is it's not updating data anywhere. It's just a view of the data. So you're going in and you're looking at data, you're looking at the student's record and all this information about the student, and you know there's no issue with updating the data and causing something to go wrong here at ODE with your data. So
this data is pulled from SSID numbers or something?
Actually,
where does the data come
okay.
from?
This I'll get to that in a couple minutes. But I wanted to go through and be more than willing to get some other scenarios. But we were just wondering, what do you need OSTX for? And so how many of you enrolled a student and then found that you've placed them in a much easier set of courses than they should be in? How many of those kids came to you right away and complained that they were in an easy course? Any? So they didn't mind. Okay, this is okay. I'll do this for a little while, and then you finally get their records and go, oh my gosh, they should be in advanced math or some AP classes. So depending on either that or the parents came and said, what is my kid doing in this class? They had this in 8th grade or something, and they're in high school. How about a parent who shows up with their lovely angelic little child and says, you know, we want to enroll our child there. And you guys go, okay, and start through the process, and then find out after the first day, and they've had about 3 or 4 discipline issues already, that their angelic little child got expelled from their last school. Wouldn't that be nice to know when you're going in? Have you ever spent time with a student digging up, printing, and mailing out transcripts, and then they find out, you know what, they decided to do something else. They're going to take the year off and go on a trip or do something else or go to clown school, and you've spent, you know, some other amount of time, you know, who knows, an hour or 2 hours with that student for what? This system you'll spend a lot less time. How many people when you contact another school, is it always by phone, or do you email them, or how do you contact them? Phone, fax? Okay. Well, this one probably isn't going to work very well then for you. I'll have to come up with a different one. But I thought, well, what if you're emailing them and then it's going to their junk email box? Maybe that's an option. So this way, with OSTX, you don't have to worry about that. So have you had a student register for classes without any paperwork, and then you get them scheduled, and then you get 6 weeks later or so, a long time later, you get a U-Haul show basically showing up with all of their records and all the information that you have to put in. So those are some of the reasons, and I'd be interested, because I'd be glad to. I need to switch some of these around, I think. So if you guys, do anyone here have some other ideas about why having immediate data available would assist in? Yes?
I don't, but I just want to clarify, we will have immediate access to discipline from other schools on this system?
There will be. So you'll know. Excuse me, I take that back. You'll know whether the student was expelled.
Okay.
So, or suspended. You won't know all of their incidents until they've been approved by the other school. So all of the information within. Yes?
Will you have it in the system where it says they're going through the process of expulsion? Because oftentimes students will try to leave from one school to the next. You said expelled as a past tense.
Right. It's the data we're getting. And so, I mean, what we were looking at is if they were expelled or suspended, and we'll go into how we get this data in a little bit, but that's the kind of data we get. We actually get more incident information, but we're flagging on the immediate access to stuff where they're expelled or suspended. So that might be something we can look into, is in-process expulsions.
Well, suspension is usually the first step to expulsion.
Oh, I see. So if there's...
Be on pretty solid ground.
Oh, good. Okay. Good. Good. Anything else?
What about special ed? Will we know if they're in special ed, or you
You'll have there'll be a flag that comes up that says that they're a special ed student. That does help, yeah. So that's always good if they come in and then they're not. You don't get them signed up for special ed, then 2 weeks later you find out they were in their previous school. What we're working on right now is bringing in special ed information. What happened is a lot of vendors don't have a special ed component to their student information systems. They have a separate one, and so we weren't getting the data through what we call our regional data warehouse providers. But we're starting to get that data in now. As soon as that data is in, yes, you will see all of their related services, special ed, basically anything that you need for that we need for federal reporting, we're asking to be sent to us. So did that answer that? Is that what you were? Okay.
So the federal reporting would include ELL status?
You'll have the ELL status, that'll flag on here. All of that data, as long as we're getting the data from the data goes from your student system to the regional data warehouse to us. As long as we're getting the data, we'll put it up here. We'll make it available. And in the summary data, you'll have a flag. You won't get all of the particulars. Okay, some of the benefits that we have no waiting, quick and accurate placement of students, so you can make sure you're getting them in the right place for their academic level. Historical assessment data and sending transcripts electronically is quite a bit less, especially when you can send them in batch, multiple students to multiple schools. Okay, well, now that we have an idea of what it is, I need to make sure you understand what it's not. It's not the official record. So what comes out of this system is a set of data for you guys to use to help you with the placement of a student or to send the transcript. It also lets you see the historical assessment information. It isn't a replacement for the SIS. We're going to pull data from your SIS, Student Information System. And the last one, not all of data is available. So if for some reason the data isn't in your Student Information System, or there's a problem between you and your regional data warehouse provider in sending us the data, there may be some missing pieces of data. So what has to happen, and we go into this in a little while, is we need to make sure all those pieces are working together. And we show you how we assist the regional warehouses when we find errors, to let them know what the errors are so that they could push those back down. Eventually, through OSTX, we want to get a vision of the student and what errors they have, so you'll know that immediately. But that's in a future phase. Is there any questions about that? And we're going to go over that again a little bit further in about the data, because it's real important that you understand that just because you see it on the screen doesn't mean it's right. It's a pointer, or it's a view onto the data, but it's not necessarily every last piece of data. So if a student's transferring in, you may not have every bit of data you need for them. For some reason, if the special ed flag isn't set right, you might not know they're special ed even after you get this. That all can be taken care of and cleaned up, but it's a matter of, there's a process we do that we work with the regional data warehouses with, and you will work with them as well.
So the student transfers from another school, and their information is cumulative. Do you guys piece it together, or do we do what we do now and enter their 3 prior schools into our system? And
that's a great question. What happens is you guys have to enter that information into your student system. So as soon as we know that student's transferred in, we keep that other information, but we make, that student is yours, that we point them as your student. Then we use the data that you send us as the new official, not official, but new view of that data.
So when we're ready to, we've got it all in there, we upload it, load it to.
Right. Actually, it should be happening automatically behind the scenes at night. So every time a change is made, those records get updated. They come in and they grab the changed records.
Just how immediate is this? I had a girl enroll today.
You won't see it until
24 hours.
Probably more like 48, and we're gonna go through it, and it could even be longer. Depends. But you will see every piece of data they had up to this point. So if a student enrolls today, you will see whatever they had at the previous school.
Well, that's what I'm at home.
Yeah. So it's immediate.
Yeah.
It's immediate. Now,
Well, where is it? When we enroll them?
Okay, so that's a good question. When you enroll them, you're entering the data. So then it gets pulled by the regional data warehouse system. So that data, that may be, you might enroll them in the morning, and they're pulling it in that evening sometime. And then the following evening, it may be as late as the following evening, we might be pulling it into our system, depending on the timing of everything, and we go through that in a little bit about the timing. But so it does. When you update something in your student system, it's not immediate in our system. That's maybe a simple way to say it. I mean, eventually, we hope down the road we could get there. So here's sort of what the process is like. Out here are student information systems in your district. And you got a regional data warehouse. Data flows from all those districts into the regional data warehouse, so you can see there the information. And how many of them you use the dashboards? You guys are all with Willamette, I would assume, since you're here, but maybe not. But if you, okay, well, so have you, looked at the dashboards that the regional data warehouse is providing? No? Or toolbox, the toolbox?
Yeah.
Okay, some of you do. Okay. Anyway, that data's there for you guys to look at and hopefully help, like the teacher dashboard and that, help inform instruction and stuff like that. Well, they take a subset of that data and they send it down to us. And in this process, we go through a validation routine that says, yep, that's good, that's good, that's good. Whoops, I got an error. Okay, that goes into a bucket over here. We keep track of the errors. Those errors are pushed back up to the regional, not the errors themselves, but information about those errors are pushed back to the regional data warehouse for them to evaluate and determine what the best way to fix them is. So from there, then we have the information that's in here. We also get the information from student staging, where you guys go and make sure your staging assessment records are fine, and maybe make any changes. Though that gets uploaded into what we call the assessment ODS, which is where your assessment data is maintained. So we have the data that is sent from the regional data warehouse from your student system, plus we have the assessment data that we maintain up at the ODE. In the application, the OSTX application, excuse me, I'm going to walk in front. We use that data. So when school B says, I want to request the student's records from school A, because the students come into the registrar and says, I'm going to go to school here. They make that request to school A. Immediately they get this information, this summary student data. It's ready to go. School A looks it over, makes some changes up here to their grades or whatever, finishes it up, and says, okay, yeah, that's going to be good. We approve it. As soon as they approve it, all of that student's data is available. Now, if they reject it, then you don't get to see this part, but you still got to see this. So, in theory, they would, they wouldn't reject it, but if they did, then they have to provide a reason back to you. So, then that's this process, and that's the exchange of data between schools. And then you have the other part of the application that pushes the data up to the Oregon University system. So, any university and OSAC, and even Oregon University system for sort of mainly for testing, but there is so you have all the universities and Student Assistance Commission. Any questions about that? Is that clear as mud? That clear? Oh. Okay, here's the timing issue. Now, this is what I call worst case scenario, that it would take 3 days to get the data updated. But if I'm at the student information system, I'm enrolling a student, and I got some new data in there, then it might be 9 in the morning. Later on, or I change data. Later on in that day, sometimes 5 p.m., some places, I think Willamette does theirs at noon. I'm pretty sure they do, at noon. So they're grabbing it before noon. Anything after that waits to the next day. So, which changes a little bit. Some things will go in a little faster than this routine then. But most regions are doing it like at 5 p.m. at night, and then they have a process. And these processes are a lot of times taking millions of records. And when they're, and pushing them through, if they're doing what we call a full build. So once it gets here, they run a process. So that puts it into their regional data warehouse. Then they run a process to push that data out to the ODE. We receive that data, but then we run processes on it to make sure it's valid data. It could be that there are some errors, and so that pushes the data back up to the information back up to the regional warehouse about the errored data. So if we're running our process the second day at 5:15, there's a big delay there. We want to change our process to go earlier. That takes some new equipment, unfortunately, and in these budget times, not sure how fast that'll be, but we're hoping to bring this process up to no more than 2 days, and in some cases maybe like a day and a half. So that's sort of, does that give you a little bit of a sense of an idea about what happens here? Because you're working here and it's got to get all the way down there. The next day it's available in your regional warehouse, so you can look in there and see and what information they have. But again, they have what we call a superset. They have more than what we're going to get. So.
Can I just to make sure it's clear?
Sure.
I wonder if I guess I'll speak for myself. I'm not too concerned about new data.
Uh-huh.
I want historical data.
Right.
If this is all new data, is the worst case scenario.
Yeah, you won't have to worry about that if for some reason the kid's taking a test and an hour later you want to see the data, then you're going to wait. But ARR sends us the data a couple times a day, and we always process every night. So.
Joel, can I give an example of where you may have to wait if you're looking at
That'd be great.
data? Let's say you get a new kid, they show up, and you request the records from the school, and the school says, oh, wait a minute, we haven't got all the data in our system yet. Maybe it's right at report card time, and they haven't entered the grades yet. So they have, before they approve that request, they're going to enter the grade. Then it's going to take that time, because they're going to have to push. They enter it in their SIF, and then it goes up to their regional, and then it goes to the regional, and then that whole process happens. So even though they're going to say, yeah, you can have the kids, we're not going to have our data updated yet. So that's the only time it's going to be a delay on getting the data, is if the school, the kid's leaving, hasn't got all the data in, or needs to make changes.
Excellent example. Yes.
And who does the request go to?
The request.
Who has to approve it for you to get anything back?
Well, if you're looking at when you're looking for a new student's record when they're coming in, that has to go to the sending school, whatever their current school is. But I think I'm not sure. Hopefully, we're not getting a confusion between there's the records we get to see because they're our kids, and then there's the records we get to see, partial subset of that record that we get to see because they're somebody else's students. So once the approval process, if we go back here, once this is approved, then we get to see everything. But these guys have to approve it, and they have, in reality, they have up to 10 days to approve it because there's the old 10-day rule. But we're hoping that this process will speed that up.
You get to see some data with this.
Yeah, it'll. I think.
School says nothing, but my question is, which person is that going to? An office manager?
No, probably the registrar at the school. Somebody, and that's part of the process of getting you authorized, because part of that is there's certain roles you get, whether you get to be approver or requester or just get access to your students, that sort of a thing. I think hopefully we'll clear that up a little more as we move forward. So this is the data that's available. There's pretty much everything you need. Probably maybe not everything, but most of the information you need. Everything from your demographics to enrollment and attendance to program information. You got marks so that if you're a middle or high schooler, you can see what those are. Test everything, graduation status. I mean, if they're coming into your school and they're graduated, I guess it's there is an issue there. Immunizations, discipline. Oh, the two that are in the alternate color here, the LEP and special ed are the two that we're bringing in. We're working with the regions and the schools to bring in right now. Some of those are related to issues with the software themselves, and that some of that data is just calculated and not stored anywhere. So we're running into that with some of the vendors of the student systems. So, but I think we'll figure out a way around it or through it. If I'm going long and I'm going too fast, just tell me to slow down. You'll see whether they're an LEP student, because that's flagged in a program somewhere, but you won't see the detailed data behind it. until we get the data and it's approved. Because if the data is not coming in, we can't really show you anything.
Some student information systems, there is all there is a slide that they're LED or there isn't any.
Yeah, sometimes you'll find that out as you use this application, which student systems have data. And some of the older systems tend to not have all of the latest data. Okay, let's talk about data quality one more time here a little bit. Again, we'll check this data for accuracy, and we check it against valid codes. We check it for, the completeness of the data. Do required fields, do they have everything that they're supposed to have? We create reports, and we have online reporting that defines where there are errors and what reason we found them for the error. We found for the errors. So, for instance, no grade was put in. Somehow the system allowed a grade to come through, or a record to come through without a grade. We have to know what grade the student is in. So if we get something like that, we're going to say that's an error, and we need that information before we can place the record in the system. The data is, as I said earlier, is the responsibility of the regional data warehouse working with their district or their school personnel. If you have an issue with your data, you'll contact Robin or somebody up at Willamette, and they'll help you if it's missing or if it's not coming through, because they'll have the information about the reports that tell them, okay, this is why this student's record didn't get in. So if you get down to that level and are working with them, or if you're a district coordinator or something like that, you'll be working with them. We do assist, and at the request of the regional data warehouse provider, we can even provide reports that go right down to the student, an actual error and how to fix it. So we do provide that. So now you're partly through this. One of the issues we came up with was that what authorizes people to allow them to make these, to let people look at the students' data? Well, there are quite a few laws that are out there that do. One is, you get the 10-day rules about that you have to get the data out in 10 days or respond. And an electronic student record can be used to transfer student information. Doesn't have to be paper. That's the other thing. We also have various rules, and this is the one that we sort of hang our hat on. An educational agency may disclose a student record without consent to an LEA, local education agency, district, school, in which the student seeks or intends to enroll. That's OAR 581.021.034 or 0340. So this is partly what we did, and this wasn't just us saying, okay, it's okay to do that. We actually worked with the Portland School District's legal department and had discussions about what makes it viable to allow us to do that. The other thing that happened is FERPA changed a little bit because they're trying to, at the federal level, they're trying to push longitudinal data systems, which data warehousing is a part of. So it authorizes or permits specific users and uses of personally identifiable information without the written consent of the parent or eligible student. Authorized disclosures include, but are not limited to, officials, you guys, of another school system, or post-secondary institution in which the student seeks to enroll. And there's a link to the document that came out of. So I just, in case anybody's having some issues or wondering about whether this is this is legal or anything. ODE did its due diligence to find that out. The other thing is part of those laws, and deeper into them, says if you're going as a state agency, if we're going to allow the transfer or the access of information, we have to be able to tell you who requested it, when they requested it, and what information was requested. So whenever you go and use the application, we're logging your use of it. And so that if you request a record from another school and you get immediate access, we log it. We have to do that by law. And you also have to have a legitimate educational reason. You can't be just going in and looking at, your neighbor's son or daughter to just see how they're doing in school. Of course, I know you guys all know that. But the legitimate educational reason in this case is enrolling a student or looking at your own sets of students. And this information, this logged information, is available on request from the ODE. We can pull that information out at any point in time. Okay. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is start talking about the application itself and actually using it. So there are basically 4 parts to OST. Oh, I'm sorry.
I got 10% left on my battery.
Oh my gosh. Hopefully not all of them are like that. Let's see if this. Yours. Oh yeah, you gotta move the little.
Yeah. Mine went down.
I don't know. Do we have
Power source.
power supplies? Well, I think we'll take a 5-minute break here and get everybody's some power supply. If yours is looking like it's going down, let us know.
42%.
42, huh? Oh man, I think we're going to need some of these power strips. Okay, yeah, there's some. These, and thank you. Here's a plug-in. Yeah. I wondered about that when the guys just sort of put them out there and said, okay, we're ready to go. Let's see, you got your own setup, so here, we'll put a power supply down here.
Probably in a training, huh? Just one.
Did they get? These guys get a hook up to a power supply? Here. One with a long, probably a long, yeah. I think it's a nice long.
Good right here.
Well, maybe some of those down there too.
There's a whole bunch of people in there.
Yeah, I think we got a couple here. You want to plug in?
Thank you.
You bet.
Yes.
Did you get?
Do we have to turn it back on because mine turned off?
Usually you just hit the power button just really briefly and it fires back up, but I can't say for sure since these aren't my computers. I don't.
Sitting right over there. Very, very
Okay. There we go.
I do have a question. Since they log and show who has requested or who has looked,
Uh-huh.
if we're pulling a transcript or looking for information on a student, it doesn't mean we're actually enrolling them. We wouldn't really count them our student until we requested the records from the prior school.
Right, but we still, because you're seeing data that's really belongs to another school or another district, we're going to log that you actually looked at that.
Fine, but it doesn't mean that they're actually enrolling.
No. That's a really good question. I need to thank you for bringing that up because I need to make something clear. This does not enroll or move the student over to your school through SSID or anything. There's none of that. You still have to go in to SSID and claim the student. This is just a viewer to look at data. That's a great question. Okay, so hopefully, is everyone back alive again and kicking with their laptops? Okay, so and hopefully you're still on this site. Okay. If you look at your screen, you should see 4 tabs plus the Help tab. If you're not seeing that, let me know. On the My Students, that's where you get to look at your students, and you can send transcripts in there. On the Request tabs, you can look at your existing requests and add requests, and then view the details, the summary details for that student. The Approvals tab, which you'll default to if there's any approvals that are waiting. The approvals will tell you how many you've got waiting out there. In this case, there happens to be 5. And then you can approve or reject a student or a request for a student's records. Finally, on the View History, you can look at the history about the record exchange. It's not about, students' history or anything like that. That's for the OSTX application to sort of like when we do our logging, we have some information that gets stored there. So it tells you, whether they got approved or rejected and so forth.
Is this a web page or something we would have to check on ourselves, or is there an automatic email notification? In other words, if the district is requesting records from Jefferson, how would we know? Is that something we have to do, or?
Great. That we're in the process. We didn't have everyone's emails, and as we go through this, what we want to do is get your emails entered into the system, and then based on your role, we want to be able to provide you with that response. So if you're an approver in the school, then you would get an email. So anyone that's listed as an approver in the school would get that email. Now, I'm going to push back on one thing there. We're going through a second phase already on this because of some of these things. And that feature probably won't be in there till the end of November. So yes, you don't have to go in here and check every day to see if something's happened. I mean, you may end up doing that on a pretty regular basis to get to the like assessment data and stuff like that, especially when you're doing a lot of testing. So you're looking at this screen and you see the options. So you should have all gotten a set of lessons, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to go through lesson 1, and we're going to talk about what's going on with lesson 1. And I didn't get myself logged in, but I'll do that. So we're going to understand the functionality of what's in and under each tab, and then talk about the permissions that are needed for each tab. If you look on this page, it's a little hard to see up here, but if you look on this page, as you're going through, each of those tabs, you'll get a little bit of information about what's in each one, and then we'll go into that in depth as we go through each of the other lessons. But the thing about halfway down there are 4 roles. There's the approver, the history, my student viewer, and the requester. Those 4 roles are available. You can be one or all of those roles. So when we send out an email to the district security administrators letting them know that the Oregon Student Record Transfer Exchange application number 185 is now available for them to provide permissions to. So when you go back to your district, you can task your district administrator to set you up. Now, the question is, which one or do you do all of them? So certain people, I would say your registrars would be pretty much all of them. Maybe counselors, you just want to look at your students versus you don't need to request or approve students. So you could have my students and history, something like that for the counselors. So they could see what's happened to their request for student records or something, or if they could check to see if the student records had been approved by the sending school. So in addition to that, down here's where we're talking about that email address. I like you. You're a great straight man, man. You know, just you gave it to me. Oh, she asked you.
I was the voice.
You were the voice.
Yeah, that's all.
I know how that goes. You know.
So I told you I worked for her.
Yeah, that's what I understand that. Anyway, as part of the providing you access, we'll have an email address entered there, and as soon as we have that feature working, which I should be by the end of November, we'll provide emails to you. One of the, what was it? I did a presentation this morning on this, and it's like, oh yes, we had, for the My Students role, someone suggested we have 2. One is for people that want to just look at your student data, and a separate one for those that want to send transcripts, since we've sort of rolled those together. So if we'd have to either provide one or both for those people that are doing transcripts, because you got to be able to look at your students before you can send a transcript. So that might be a possibility to, in case there are people that you don't want to have the ability to send transcripts, but who want to look at maybe student records and historical data. Okay, so take a minute or two and just go through the tabs on the screen and take a look at moving back and forth through them and that. And we'll, after you do that for a little bit, we'll go on and just sort of get used to the functionality, how the system works. We had this system in place a couple years ago, but we went out and pilot tested it, and we were using a whole different way of doing it, and they just told us, go back to the drawing board, basically. So we did, and this time we put a little more questions and answers into it, and our goal was basically simplicity, providing the information as easy as we could. So I think the tab feature.
It's to display the web page.
It's not allowing you to
Now I'm totally shut out of the whole thing and have to resolve it.
It's what now?
Something got security certificate, it doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Windows doesn't like the
Security certificate?
certificate there.
See, I can't do that.
I don't.
It's not available. Except for
What's-
the approval screen. Everything else is still
That's the only one I don't have is the approvals.
They say you trade back and forth. Is it maybe, this is just coming out. We just got this out, and so maybe there's something going on here with multiple people. We did have a couple little issues this morning, but no. Go ahead and refresh and see. We're back, yeah.
So you can either, so I'm the registrar, so I'm gonna be able, I want to be able to do everything. But my counselors, I want them to be able to push transcripts out to colleges.
Mhm.
So,
They would get right now they'd get the My Students.
and then they can push those out
Mhm.
for students that belong, sometimes
Right.
it'll drop off.
So is it refresh?
Well, it's thinking about
It could be. And again, you know, we've not had this many people accessing the system at the same time, so we thought it would work just fine, but the request is blue. Why is it? Oh, okay. It's just because when you went on. So, what happens? Can you hit my students? Does that do anything? No, it's not doing anything.
Says I don't have authorization to get in to see the approval before it started.
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't have. Everybody should have authorization.
It may just be that you dropped off the internet connection, because it is wireless.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people on it in this room. So if that's the case, you just need to go back in and reconnect to wireless.
Can you know, like at our district,
Go to my students.
I'm gonna have to
That's
talk
wise.
them into signing us up for this, you know, it's gonna be a little bit of a struggle. Can we, when we start doing this, set it up so that maybe we just start pushing transcripts out, and we know that that's working well, and then we
I would-
pick up the rest?
I would probably start with just looking at student records and looking at that to make
But
sure.
once we're on there, aren't we
You-
open up for people to request records from us?
You are.
I mean, you're either on or you're off.
Well, they can request records from you whether you're on or not. So if
But
you
you
just
just don't get the email.
right, you won't get the email.
So
which
we don't know that they're doing
so we have to make sure that somebody from your district is logged in. If not, we send it directly to the district security administrator. So they would end up getting. So they'll make sure that somebody gets access that way.
Because I know that we sat through this training a couple of years ago, and it was, there's still so many unanswered. If we could get our feet wet by doing a little bit and see how that works.
Yeah.
then pick up
I
the
would.
rest.
There's two reasons why I'm saying not to do the transcripts. First, one is you need to look at the data and make sure everything is coming across well. The other thing is we're not receiving all of the data, like the CUME GPA and stuff is not all coming in for every student, and we have to come up with a way to notify you that certain data is not available.
Right, but that's what this makes this such a hard sell.
Well,
But I mean, you're doing the data warehouse. You're
Right,
doing
ours
this.
is
And
going
so-
through you right now, so it
Right.
should
So it
work.
should be going.
right, as long as there aren't any errors,
Right.
it should be
We
fine.
monitor that all the time.
They,
What district?
So,
Dallas. Well, you guys aren't using the toolbox, so I don't know how much you're looking at your data.
That is an administration thing, so.
Right, but what we're gonna do
So,
is set up.
when you're selecting up here, you select this kid, and then that's where you say send a transcript, and you can send this transcript to this school.
That's right. We're going to go over that in a
Oh,
minute.
okay.
Yeah. So, hopefully you were able to get back in and make it work. Were you able to do some of that? Might be.
it starts me out there, and then I click off of it, and it says I have 0, and then it says I do not have permission to see this.
I don't know if anyone went. You know what may have happened in my earlier session this morning? They might have cleared out. So, let's see. Go into. Can you click on my students? What happens?
It changes to that, to all of them except the one that says
Go into district and select Hillsborough. They're not really Hillsborough kids, but we just use the names because people are familiar with it. And then put KEN in there, and then hit search. There's the list of them. So we're going to be going through this a little more. So for those of you overachievers that are jumping ahead, we're going to go through all this. So let's go back up. Get you back up here, and we'll go into this in lesson 2. We'll go into searching students and stuff like that. So again, to reiterate, under searching my students, you can look up one of your students and see details about him or her. That's everything that we have. That's not everything that you would have in your student system. So you can see what we have and what we will share with other schools when they make requests. And you can send a transcript. So between those are the two functions you do from the My Students screen. And again, you can see what we have. So if there's errors, if for some reason we're not getting some data, it's not going to show up. And that's important when you're getting ready to send a transcript. So that the thing that we need to do at our end is we're looking forward to gaining your acceptance of this, is to provide back to you a list of those fields that we don't have for you, that Oregon University system needs to get your student admitted to college. So that's one of our tasks moving forward that we have to do, and this product is going to be updated throughout the year. We're going to continue to update it until we get it right, and right is when you guys are using it. So if for some reason when you get back to the district or the school and they say, "No, we're not going to do that right now," don't give up. Come back and check on it in a month, couple months, and that sort of thing. I think you'll find that there are enough features available right now to make it worthwhile. The historical assessment data people have been clamoring for years to get. That's there, and that is right. There's no ands, if, or buts. That's our data. We get it directly from the AIR who does our testing for us. So I think it's just a matter of just sort of like, was it Covey or whoever, the speed of trust. You got to build up that trust, and we're going to work on that. So here's the options. When you want to search for your students, since it's your students, you got the local ID in here, the SSID. In the name field, you can put in any part or the full name. The more you put in, the more exact your results of students will be. The thing you have to remember is when you put something in, if I put a K in, that has a wild card in front and back, basically. Anytime you put something in there, it's got a wild card in front and back. So if I put a K in, anyone I find that's got a K in their name anywhere, their last name, will show up. So it's pretty good in that respect. But it's got for flexibility, but it also, then all of a sudden I've got a lot more than I need. So what we recommend is trying to get as much information as you can about the student. Now I will tell you, a friend of mine's a private investigator, and she says, I don't worry about Social Security numbers because I can't get them half the time, but I can usually get a date of birth. If I got a name, last and first name and a date of birth, I can find anybody, and which is a little scary because it's so ubiquitous out there. This information is everywhere. So anyway, in this case, if you were when you're working here, you're going to see multiple districts in here. That's not going to happen when you get back. We did that for training purposes. You're going to default to your district, and if you're only set up with authorized to a specific school, you'll default to your school too. If you're a district coordinator and you're looking for a student, you want to go in and change this to the specific school that the student's at, if you know. Or you can put the grade in. Now, when we took this data, we decided, okay, we'll use presidents' names for the last name, and then come up with some first names, I think, from some other source, so that we could anonymize or obfuscate the data. The only problem with that is there's only about 50 presidents or something like that. Well, the name's repeated over and over again, so we'll have to come up with a better system. But for now, you want to go in and use, when you search on our system right here, maybe a grade and a name, the first name. You can put in like a last name or part of a last name and a letter. I think the example that we'll go through here in a second in the training, in the lesson, talks about what happens if you put in just SON. So those are the different search criteria. There's quite a few. I think, this especially if they're your students, you know them, you should have enough there to get you to them. What happens is once you've selected a student, there's a little section that comes up here that has this information, and you'll have the last name, first name, and grade. There's also that's where you view the student's information by clicking on the view. There's another feature called hover that when you come into this and you hover over this, it should pop up a little window that allows you to see more information about the student. So you can, if you had 4 students that all had the same names, you go, oh, okay, which one is it? And you can see a little bit more. We want to expand on that to provide even additional information. And we'll let you try that when we get into looking at the data and doing the lesson plan. So finally, because it's your student, you'll get access to all the main tabs and all the sub-tabs within that. And we'll go ahead and take a look at that. So, lesson 2. Go ahead in, and what you're going to do is look up a student, and let me, if you want to use one of the president's last names, I can give you some names here if it makes it easier. There's, I won't even try to pronounce that name. Clarence Carter. There's an Adelina Jefferson, and you can just put in parts of those names. Rhonda Lincoln. Theodora Tyler. Sharika Bush. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, because the next one's even worse. Brittany Harrison. How about Elmo Carter? Aaron Adams. There's some names there, if you heard that. Is it that again?
No. So like this.
Okay.
And it shows all these different grades.
Right. That's normal.
Okay.
And then hover, put your thing on one of those. It should. It's going.
It did it earlier, so I'm not sure. But, so like a student, it's gonna show all their different grades when they.
No, in this case is like I was saying. We had multiple of the same because so pick a student. Usually you won't see that. I mean, you'll see the most current grade they're in.
All right.
So yeah, if it comes up and you see like 5 of the same name, that's because of our process not being as efficient as it should. So it's not going to show every grade that they are ever in. It's showing multiple students. Those would be unique students with different names normally.
So we're clicking on view here under details. Getting anything?
Nothing at all? Wow. This screen is wild. Yeah, that's what it should look like. I'm not sure what.
You can also see that if they're on her marker as well.
Huh.
Even if you click on view, you're not going to get anything.
With all these pages.
That's just more students. You can.
Should I try a different name?
Yeah, go ahead and see. Or you can put in an SSID if you want to just go that route, but
Maybe I'll try Carter just to see what happens.
Clarence.
Clarence?
Yeah, that's the first name.
Oh.
Whoops.
Okay. Why am I not in there? There we go. See that? Maybe I'll try. See what happens. Do I have to put the whole Clarence?
No, you shouldn't have to.
I don't know.
Oh, you're looking in Lynn Benton Lincoln ESD.
Oh, and I want to be just.
Try to choose either Beaverton or Hillsboro.
What's the matter?
Yeah, because some of the other districts don't necessarily have as many kids. They're smaller.
So now I'll try view.
Yeah.
Not getting anything there.
Wait a minute. Just be patient.
Oh, be patient.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't take 2 seconds. I'm trying to see if it's showing. Is there? What is it? Is that some sort of a security thing?
It keeps blinking. It's
What is it saying?
auto updater is requesting.
Oh, click on that and say no.
Get that to shut off.
Maybe that'll help. I'm not sure.
Okay, at least it's gone now.
See, I don't have that here.
What's that? The auto updater? Bye.
Nothing.
Is it?
See, I can see it processing up there.
Let me go online and see if I.
Will the private universities eventually be on this, or is it just state?
I don't know if the privates will be on there. I think it's just going to be the states. Well, the thing is that, in essence, you could send it to any university if we put them on the list, but it's not going to be on the list anytime soon that I know of. And Lisa would know if that's even thinking about it. Okay. Well, I apologize that you guys are having problems here, and I'll talk to the developers, but I don't know. Sometimes it's the local environment or versus the browser, but I don't think so in this. I think there's some little glitch happening. Did anybody get to be able to view the details? Anyone? Oh, you did. Some of you were. Might be. Yeah, it could be something in there. Let's see.
So in these scenarios, this is just the summary data because we in theory have not.
No, you should be. No, these are kids that belong to you. So.
Yeah, there's quite a few things that are grayed out.
There's no longer trust. I'm not sure. I never saw this certificate error. That's here at Willamette. It says issued to WSD, so that must be okay. We can get by that, I think, because that's related to the earlier page. Sorry. So I'm going to go into my students up here and see. So I do KEN and what's a Kennedy that Norbert. Where do we come up with these names? So, oops. And well, this is probably going to get a lot of them. Okay. So what district? Oh, I got all the districts, that's why. So I'll go to Hillsborough and search it again and see if we got. Okay. So now, if I view, here we go. So here's what you should see if you haven't gotten there. All the tabs are available. Under student summary, you got the registration and marks. And this is what you'll see. Not sure why. And again, I don't know if, did anyone with a Willamette laptop get access to the details?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, a couple of you did, so it's not necessarily the laptops. So we've got some demographic information. Guardian data isn't showing up, and I'm having the developers double check that because pretty much everybody has guardians. So what? And then your enrolled data for every school the student ever attended, your attendance summary, and in this case instruction flags. It's not a very good example of a student, but if they had special ed or ELL or something, it would list that over here. The immunizations and current academic summary, which, what grade is this student? Oh, so that's interesting because we have grade 12 and we're not seeing anything, which could be a couple reasons for that. Could be our end. Could be that there are errors on that academic data. The marks, you see it comes in with the latest course. So this student was a 12th grader in 08-09, so it could be that that's what's causing the academic summary information not to show up, which would be something at our end. And it gives the grades for second semester, grade 12, in this case back in 08-09. If I want to go to another one, I can bring that down and try to, go to another year, look at all of those. One of the things that I've asked the developers to do is to add a field, and you can maybe help me out here. This will be a development design class here. The course description, and they called this course code, and really that's not a course code. This is more of the full description, and this is like a short name or something of the course. But I am asking them to get the NCS code in here so that we can pull that across and have that in here, because not so much when you're looking at your students, but if a new school is enrolling a student, if they have the NCS codes, then it'll make them easier to get that student into the right classes. So if I were to do that and had to remove something here, should I remove this to do that? I might be able to get them both in, but this will probably get changed to something a little bit. This would be course description here.
And then your coding so that we know where to put it.
So the course description here with.
Well, no, course description you've got already, but it says course code.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Leaving this.
And then your code
would be the NCS code.
Determine whether or not that English was a elective or English, that kind of thing. That would be nice.
So say that again. The course code, the NCS course code here, can define. Does the NCS course code tell you it's an elective?
I don't know.
I don't think so. Okay.
What is the NCS course code for?
Well,
sometimes you get a transcript and it will say
elective.
It'll be English, but it'll be an elective.
Specific to each school, depending on whether they've completed
So
the
you have to make phone
requirements.
calls.
Well, I don't. Well, it depends on what because your graduation plan may be different than another school's graduation plan.
Right.
So you might.
Everybody's.
It might not end up being an elective for you. You might need more core courses or something than the other school. So that what was an elective for the prior school may need to be a. What's the word? It's not a core.
Without their permission. Yeah.
You can't change.
No, you can't change it. You have to call.
The electives, you can't. You have to leave it as an elective.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever they got it from staff of the school, they
Teacher. If the teacher's not licensed to teach it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Good point. I see.
It should be clear on here that what it needs to be on the transcript.
So we need to. You would like to see if we're getting that elective or what's the word for a required? Thank you.
But with the NCES codes, if I get a transcript from another school, it doesn't have the codes on there, so am I gonna have to look them up? Because
Well,
I just kind of match them to our courses now,
Uh-huh.
and if it's French, because we don't give French, I then look up the NCS code and go in and.
well, we would save you that step at least, anyway. I mean, you'd still be able to look at the course description, wouldn't you?
You have,
We would have. What I'm thinking of doing is adding a real course code, making this course description the longer description here, having a course code that says this is the NCS course code in there. And that would be, I mean, theoretically, we could put in the NCS course code in the local course code. Yes?
So and I'm with you there. If you went course code in that first column, and that is your NCS,
Mm-hmm.
and then you went course description in the middle, what the phraseology is, such as French 1, French 2.
We don't know, yeah.
And then could you hyphenate it and say it's required or elective?
I wouldn't. In a database world, we always hate hyphenating, concatenating stuff. So we could create another column.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Because this, I mean, if you, realistically, you know, if it said CRATT, you know it's credit attempted. You know, so we can do CR
Earn could be short.
earn or something like ERND. Okay, something like that to shorten these up. And the mark type code, you just say mark or whatever. So I'm working with guys that haven't ever worked in schools before. And unfortunately, we're learning. We're learning. So anyway, that's the marks. Now you should be able to see. Hopefully, this student has some assessments.
can we go back to the marks for a second?
Okay.
Because it's showing on here that there are like second try or semester, and it gives a year and their grade.
Which one are you looking at?
I'm still looking at marks.
And is it a?
It's a student.
Okay. And it's a student in. I mean, because I'm not looking at the same one here. Maybe I don't.
It's probably not. It's Darren Coolidge in Hillsborough.
Okay. Let me go out of here and see if
But
I.
it should be, you have the same information up there, because I'm just wondering if it would tell people if there's an actual date in there of a, because if you're entering a transcript from another school, you have to decipher whether it's trimester or semester. And this is saying it could be either.
That's if I'm thinking what I remember I saw that on some of those. Why is this? Oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm sorry. This is Coolidge. And it says in the header what term it is. It should.
Well, it says third trimester, so.
Yeah, I know. We have to fix that. It should be trimester, not trisemester. But unfortunately,
whatever the school puts in, so
exactly.
If
If it's your school, you know, it'll be whatever you're using: trimesters, semesters, quarters, things like that.
whatever we're labeling it, is what it'll follow.
Not. It's. If I don't know, I'm not sure about that. I don't think it's what you label it. I think it's what it's when we do a decode from the. I think when the regional data warehouse sends it to us, it meets one of a few different, we call decodes. In other words, you might put in S and we call it semester. You put in SEM, we call it semester. You know, there might be things like that. So we'll crosswalk it to whatever one of a standard list. But
So like especially other states have some weird, they may have 4 quarters or 6 quarters, and you know, it's just.
right, those like modulars and stuff like that. Which Darren Coolidge are you looking at?
It's the third one down, he's a senior, but there's 2 seniors.
I've got, oh, I see. The fourth one down? Is his SSID 362003030?
No, it's 305-494-120.
Okay. Come on. 495. I'm not getting a 495. No, that's the one? Oh, I guess I'm not hearing well. Why isn't that? It's trying to bring it up again, but so let me look here. So if you experience problems like this with the application, please call our help desk and let us know, because we want to get them resolved right away. What's that?
Look under Mark.
Okay. And
And then
Whoops.
they're all collapsed, and so if you uncollapse them, or if you just look at them collapsed, it says,
third semester, you mean? Yeah, that should be trimester, and we need to change in our crosswalk table that it says instead of tri-semester and trimester. I thought I told them to do that, but I guess it didn't get done. So we'll get that fixed so that it says trimester. But
or semester, yeah, or.
well, yeah, depending on whether it is. Now, we can look here and probably determine first, second, third. Yeah, I'm sure it's a trimester school in this case. Yeah, first, second, and third. So, not sure. So, here are some tabs. This is some of the information. One of the things you need to know is if there's nothing showing, if it's dimmed like this, there isn't any discipline data, they don't have academic summary data, some of this stuff is missing. This is where, we need to do some little work at our end to working with the regional data warehouses to make sure that the data that they say is missing is truly missing. We did that in our testing, and it seemed to be working. And it's possible that they wouldn't have some of this data, but I would think that if this is a senior, we definitely would have some of this information. So I'm a little concerned, but again, we'll fix it. And again, this goes back to where I started out, especially in the earlier stages. This is a view into data we have at our end. Whether we aren't showing it because we have it and there's a problem with our program, or we just don't have it, those are the two things that we can work with your regional data warehouse provider and we can look into at our end. So if there is data that shows up here missing, please contact your regional data warehouse provider and ask them if there is discipline. If they're sending us discipline data, that means we have an issue we need to work on at our end, and we'll get those become high priority events at our end. So.
What about assessment?
Yeah, I'm trying to find this. No, I am not sure. I didn't do an analysis to pick out a student that had assessments, but here's one with requests pending now. I've got a list of students, but I don't have our project coordinator put together for me, but it doesn't say what data is in what they have. I mean, I can try another one, but this is unfortunate that I don't have that, and I apologize. As you can see, there's the reading, writing, math, science, social studies, and ELPA are tabs. So if the student has any of that data, you'll see it, and you'll see it for prior years. Let me try one more before we move on. See if I can find a student, and be my guest in looking too if you want to look to see if you can find one with assessments, because within my students you should be able to see everything, and if we're not, then that is an issue. And if you find one, please let me know. Oh, this is Beaverton. That's why. Let's try that. Okay. Let's see. As with any new program, there's always a few bugs. We thought we had. Well, I apologize. And it could be something to do with our test training database here too. Well, I'll have to look into that again, and that you should. It will be interesting when you get back to your shop if you get your security administrator to give you access on the production side. If you can get in and find the assessment information for those students, and you should be able to. And then if you're not, please call our help desk and let us know. And I'm going to go back and talk to them about the assessment data as well. So.
Do I understand right that for incoming students, we just have the student summary, and the 2 tabs that fall on
Right, you don't see for the incoming students, at this point in time, you don't see the assessment information until.
Is that a legal thing? They don't want us to see it, or?
I am pushing to have you guys get access to it. For a new student coming in, and so you know exactly where to get them, right? Okay. Well, that's good information, and what I would really appreciate is if you guys would email me. My card was up there. If you'll email me with that information, I can pass it on to my bosses and say, hey, this is why I suggest this. I'm not just doing it. Okay. Data available. Okay. Well, I apologize for some of this not showing up. If you find a student that has assessment data, let me know, and we'll go back and take a look at those records. But we probably should move on to the rest of this. Otherwise, you'll just know about my students and won't know about the rest of this. So. Quickly go through back to where we were. Hope that doesn't make anyone sick going through. Okay, so we went through lesson 2. You should have gotten to see how the hover works. You've got the access to see what sort of data was up there. Moving on with lesson 3. But first we're going to talk a little bit about once you get a list of students up, and then there's the ability to select those students and move them. You'll see some arrows there next to the student names. You can move one or you can move them all. So if you've done a selection and say I want to send every senior's transcript to OSU, or something like that, you can do that. Most of the time you'll select a specific set of students plus a specific subset of universities to send to. And then it's just a matter of clicking send in the transcript, and then what happens after that. So in other words, here's what happened. We chose a student, they put over there. As soon as you do that, the list of universities appears, and included with that is Oregon Student Assistance Commission. You pick a university or multiple universities over here, and it just sends the transcripts to every one of those. Now, these are the ones that Oregon University System has agreements with that'll receive that. And Lisa's going to talk a little bit about her process. Let's see. I thought I had, okay. Okay. So, we'll go into lesson 3 in a second here. But you ensure that the transcript data is complete, especially when you're first starting with this. Before you can even send it up to Oregon universities through their process, you have to work with Lisa, and they have a process that she'll explain, I'm sure, about getting all connected up. You want to make sure they're accurate, and that we have, and the reason we're not, and I'll step back, is we're not going to have this ready until a little bit further on. I mean, the transcript, you could send a transcript right now, but some of the data isn't coming in. It's called the cumulative GPA and the ranking class from through some regional data warehouse providers is not getting to us, or all of it isn't getting to us. And part of that is there's processes that have to be run in your student system when you update grades to make sure that these are updated. So there's this combination of working with your regional warehouse provider to make sure that all of your cumulative GPA and ranking class information is getting pushed up. And whoever works with them in your district can start that process and to validate that if they haven't already. We are getting some, so I'm not saying that, we just want to, what we want to do is create a process that says, this data is not available. Do you still want to send the transcript? And then you can decide, and then you go back, and if you say, wait a minute, no, I don't want to, you go back into your student system and make those updates and make sure the data gets pushed. And make sure you're getting all the final grades and the grad status. And as we build up on this, as you get used to it, you'll do more of this in the beginning, and then as you get used to the system, and you'll see that the data is valid and you're getting all of the data. So Lisa, do you want to fill them in on the OUS transcript process and the rest of that?
So I'm not sure. I don't think any of the tools here are familiar, but are any of you using IDTX? Have anyone heard of IDTX? Raise your hand. Maybe out of your hand. So basically, just to give you a little history, so you know where this comes from and why it works the way that it does. About 5 or 6 years ago, we got a legislative funding to develop a statewide transcript system. And about that time is when the new warehouses were sort of on the cusp of starting out. And we had to decide whether we were going to build the transcript system to work with each student information system or wait for the data warehouses. So we've been going for about 5 or 6 years with transcripts, and the data warehouses are just getting up there, so we think we made a good choice by starting with each student information system. ESIS is kind of the main crux of where we get all of our transcripts. Animation has them as well. So now we're kind of at the point where we are looking to move to working with the data warehouses instead of student information systems. So a lot of maintenance, as some of you might know, ESIS is going to go away fairly soon, so that effectively kills our transcript system. So we've been working with Joel and ODE, and we have basically leveraged what we have already to work with the data warehouses. And we've gone through the different iterations of OSTX, and basically my role is to compare what we get from the OSTX systems, what we get with IDTS transcripts. And we've been doing that for quite a while. And that helps us narrow down some of the areas where we still need to do some data checking. As Joel mentioned, cumulative GPA, there's about 5 or 6 areas where we really need to focus on working with the districts and making sure we get the data that we need for our universities. There was a question before about schools and if we use stuff with private colleges. We use a national format and we use a national process. And so theoretically, you can send transcripts to any college that will take your transcript. We only have the university system schools on right now because, one, it was a legislative mandate for the state, and so we kind of get into some gray area with, we did have University of Phoenix and University of Idaho, and I'm not really sure how we added them. That was our system analyst that set that up. We set them up as trading partners, and we recently had some issues with them in terms of getting acknowledgments for transcripts that are sent, and University of Phoenix being a pay-for-play school kind of thing, versus having our universities on before them. So we've just taken them out. But theoretically, yes. Technologically, yes, you can send transcripts anywhere. It's more of us going through the process of working with the schools. To give you an example, like Idaho, we send transcripts to Idaho. We have an agreement with Idaho. We can never get acknowledgement from them. I've tried for 5 years.
to get acknowledgement to make sure that we know that they received our transcripts. It becomes a lot of maintenance, and whoever has to do this has to have individual relationships with all the campuses. So if you send one to, a California school and it doesn't get through, who goes and follows up on that? And so that's kind of where we're at with in terms of getting those.
Wouldn't they notify the students, your application is complete and we don't have your transfer? That kind of information was sent to the students. Your application, so the school will send to the students that they've received their application, it's in process, no decision can be made because we're missing, and then they list what they're missing, and a transcript would be one of those things. But then the student would come back and say, oh, they didn't get it. Well, then I guess we would have to follow up with the week, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking more along like Linfield, Willamette, George Fox, TSU.
Well, and we had talked to them for a while ago, like the private universities, and again, it became the, I think it was more of the, it's a public institution funding kind of thing.
Okay.
That was part of it, and then part of it was, I worked in the office with 5 or 6 other people, and now I'm the only person. So I do the statewide report, or support for our university. So and I understand wanting to expand it. We've been trying to figure out ways to expand it. It's more of the technology's there. Like, we can totally do it. And so that might be another round of, looking at how we do that. But like I said, we use a national standard, we use a test XML format, and we go through. So basically what happens now is the student information system will send a file to us. We do certain checks on our end as well. For example, if the GPA, we check GPA if something looks like it's not included. Sometimes the summer course doesn't get calculated in the GPA, and we'll bounce that back. We send it on, it comes to our server, and then we send it on to Texas, which is an EDI server, and it basically it's the nationwide hub where everything goes and gets translated to different universities. And then from there, it goes on to our campuses. And one of the reasons we started this project, in addition to needing other data on the transcript, we actually get a copy and we use it for, some of you might know, we have a freshman profile that we send back to campuses. And a couple of years ago, we started adding curricular data.
This Joel?
So from the transcripts that we get, we can go and
Okay,
say,
thank you very much.
Students to level
All right.
math, and this
Bye.
is how they're performing in the first year of college math, and this is the college course that they took. So we've expanded that, and that was one of the things the Department of Ed really wanted, pushed on, to get that information sent out to them. So basically now we're just taking the same process, and instead of going from the student information system, we're going from a data warehouse. The other thing that we've been trying to work on is community colleges, and I know from the earlier group too, like BCC was a big one, and with that, it's a matter of getting to the right people, I think, because I think the community colleges, I've gone to talk to some people, and they don't think they get high school transcripts.
They usually don't, because the kids take the placement test, and that's where we start them.
Yeah, but we've had a lot of requests for community colleges because they are using them. Some colleges use them for enrollment or scholarships or things like that. And so that would be our next line of where we, who we talk to get kind of on board with this. So I think that's my overview, just to kind of give you where we're at with this. I already said that. So basically, the way that it's going to work right now is I think this is what we have this done. When your security administrator sets you up with I'm going to make this up. When the security administrator gives you access, they will also contact me, and I set you up on your web log. And basically, you need access through us as well to send transcripts, so that we can receive them. If you're not set up as a user, then you get your transcripts bounced. So that'll all happen on the back end. We have a web application that will let you track all of your transcripts that you send. So you'll have the information from that in your, it's on the thing there. And then once you log in, once you send a transcript, you can log into the Okay, so once and it's not very pretty, it's very functional, but, you know, it works. The weblog will tell you, it'll list your students that you've sent. It shows, I think, the last 30 days, and then you can see the last, I think, up to 18 months if you use the advanced search. And you can search by student or SSID or things like that. So once it gets sent, there's the status shows up as converted to EDI, which is, again, that's kind of like one of your terms. We should get a better one. But it'll show you the day that we actually receive the file, and we process them every day. So once you sent it and we've received it for processing, it'll show up with the date here. It'll show, and then the date that it's received by the campus and they've actually picked up the file and they have it in their hot little hands will show up here. If for some reason it gets lost, the file gets corrupted, you know, if it fails out because it's missing a piece of data like an SSID, and it's not received by the campus, it'll show the status will show the campus did not acknowledge, and you should receive an email that says, you know, it's been over 5 days and your PSU hasn't picked up your transcript. And typically at that point you can just you can try resending it, or people contact me. That's what usually happens when I go hunt them down. If you click on the date, it'll show you a PDF of what is actually getting sent to the campuses. And so it'll be in a format that basically all of our campuses years ago agreed on the data that they needed to see in it. So they're all standardized through all the campuses.
What about the process that they need to go through when they want to first start sending transcripts to you guys?
Well, as I was saying, like the security, I think we agreed the security administrator would actually.
Well.
And then what we would ask you to do, like Joel mentioned, is when we first started doing our training with IDTS, we asked people to follow like their first 21 transcripts and pull them up, take a look at them, and make sure all the data is there. Because even if you see it within, you know, OSTX, we want to make sure that it comes in on our end as well. And, you know, things like GPA aren't missing or something doesn't look like it's wrong.
Do you shepherd them through or sort of monitor them as they go through the first few times? Is that what that part of that is?
We do that. We have reports through ODE that will show, I think Marty said that there are reports, and we also have some reporting that we do where we can start verifying. So like once we know, I don't know, Willamette High School has been set up to use OSTX, we'll start monitoring as well and see if there's anything that doesn't come through correctly. We'll also let our campuses know as people are added so that, you know, if they're noticing that there's a high percentage of GPAs missing from a certain high school, then we can start looking at contacting the data managers as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some processes in place, but it's going to really, because even when we first started doing IDTS, you know, there's flags that are set within a student information system that make the data show up a certain way, and you know, so even though we're doing data checking, there's certain things that can happen all along the process that no matter how much we test, we can account for.
One of the things that I'd like to see happen, and Lisa and I have talked about it, is to bring this sort of functionality directly into OSTX, so you don't have to go out to their system to check to see if a transcript made it up to the campus that you were sending it to. So that's something we'll try to do before IDTS goes away, but I thought it was going to go away in July, but it might be longer.
I mean, we'll still support for other schools. It's just, you know, one of these student information systems is going to be gone. So
yeah.
That's most of our user base. So.
And so, yeah, we'll try to get that set up so that if that happens, we can do everything from OSTX. So.
And I think we have most of the programming in place. It's just a matter of getting it to
right.
integrated.
Right. So
we have to be set up with you separately to check this information to send.
Yeah, so I think that was our final one. Security administrator will contact me and set you up.
Make sure that basically they have to know that you guys are going to send them they send in the transcripts.
My next question is, do we do the same process with OE?
With who? Oh, OSAC. Oh.
Okay, so
I see.
you can send transcripts to OSAC through this. Then OSAC has their separate portal, which it's not associated with this at all. So it depends on what you're talking about. Because OSAC has a way for you to get a pin. And yeah, so that OSAC is fully separate from this.
Okay, so the one thing that was an option with all the state colleges was OSAC.
Right.
But I can't go in there and click on that and click OSAC.
Yes, you can. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
You can click on that and send it to OSAC, but I know that OSAC also has their own portal that is not connected to it.
Right.
Because I do get calls about that, and people are like, "I'm trying this," and I'm like, "No, that's an OSAC pin. I don't know what that looks like. I can't find it." So
Setup with the system and everything going.
yeah.
Right. You
And
bet.
they are actually, and OSAC already receives electronic transcripts. Yeah, so the process is going already for something separate. And like I said, I know that OSAC also has their own portal where you can upload a PDF to them, and that would be like a separate login. So if you didn't, for some reason, there's a problem with it, or I don't know which one's easier, so there's just multiple ways of sending it. I think when they originally started requiring electronic transcripts, I'm not sure that the portal was up at that point, and so we gave them kind of our work, our interface so that they can get electronic transcripts for the 50 or so schools that they've done one. So.
Sounds good. Thanks, Lisa. So if you look at lesson 3, it basically says, go in and choose to look at pick a student and then pick a college. You can do that. I'll do it up here on screen as well. So if I pick the student, happen to be in 9th grade, if I pick somebody who's not in 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, that student will not, you'll get an error message that says you can't send a transcript for a student that's not in high school. Then I just go down here and simply select the student, or select the university, and then press the arrow key to push it over. Okay.
And you'll also see there's an Oregon University system in here. That's just, sometimes if you have problems or you need to actually see the transcript, it's just a text line. Or if you're training somebody and you want to go all the way through the process, Oregon University system just comes to myself. So that's just why that's in there. Just if you have questions.
That's actually how we test. So one of the things I was told I contacted my project coordinator, and he said he refreshed the database, so theoretically, if I find I can show, what I wanted to show you was the assessment stuff. So theoretically, I hope he meant that we had some assessment information. Let's see if I get. So let's view. I'm hoping. Nope. All right. Well, he didn't understand, I guess. We'll get that. We'll need to update our training database. Since we're getting close on time, I think we'll move forward and so basically, that's what I just showed you is how you deal with lesson 3. Let's go on to requests. On the request side, you come up with a screen that looks like this: requested, approved, date, status, SSID, all the way across. When you see screens like this, you can click on the heading and should be able to get it to sort by sort in alphabetical order. The spaces, the boxes below it allow you to filter. So if I have a drop down arrow, I can put in that or select from a list. Say I want to just see those that are approved. I find the approved, and it gives me just all the approved ones. I can put in an SSID, last name, and then it'll give you a subset, which is really nice. So you don't have to dig through a bunch of students. Then I can see the view details. When I do the view details, I am looking at another school's students. So it will be logged. But before it does, it'll ask you, do you have a legitimate educational reason to see this data? You say yes. Then you get to see the summary data, which includes the registration tab and the marks tab. And then the view history just shows you what's happened with the student, and if it's waiting approval, like when the record started, things like that. Well, actually that shows here, but shows some more details about the record and the process it's gone through and who's been contacted, that sort of a thing. If I want to see more than a few up here, I can change the page size to say 50 or 100 or whatever. I can't remember all the different options. Or I can leave the page size small and just use the arrow keys to go to each one if I have more than I want to see. If I go to add requests, that'll bring up these options. That if I need to search for a student, if I happen to know the student's SSID when they're sitting there, great. Otherwise, I have a name and institution. I can search by last name, first name, and institution. Or I can search by last name, first name, and date of birth. So as you click each one of those, it changes what's available to search by. One of our earlier earlier session, they said, why don't we add the institution in here too with date of birth? So we'll look into that, adding that in there so that it gives you that option. Okay. So lesson 4. So you can go into the functionality of the request page, go through that, understand the types of available student detail, and learn to look up a student and request their information. So go ahead and walk through lesson 4. I've got lesson 4 here. So try some of the options out. So try the different searches. Try the filtering. Try hitting the the header. See how that all works for you. And make sure. And then we can go through the process of requesting a student. One of the options you'll see, if you look up here a minute, is you got approved, available, rejected, waiting approval. The available one is something that it's turned off right now, but as we move forward, that happens after the 10-day period. So if you have a request and you don't respond to it within the 10-day period, you'll get access to that data. I should say, if the school doesn't respond to it in that 10-day period, you'll get access to that data because of the 10-day rule, the law that says they have to get that data to you within 10 days. Now, right now, that's not on because we don't have everybody in the state working with it yet. So as soon as we have more people are using it, and we come up with a system that says that we can get your email addresses and we can send this to somebody in your district, then we'll turn that on. So you've gone across and you see the the information about the students. If you try to go down and do a request, so you do an add request, then it should pop up the different options there. So you should say SSID, name and institution. So district and school. The required fields have an asterisk, so you have to have a district and you have to have a last name. And then name and date of birth. All fields are required. So it helps narrow it down. And one of the things why we require certain fields and others is because we want to make sure, since you're looking at every student theoretically in the state, or everyone that's sending us data, we want to make sure we don't send back 5,000 kids. We want to give you as small a subset as we can. So if I go in here and do, well, I don't have a date of birth, so let me do this one. If I go in here and select, now this is another issue I'll have them fix, but it should only show those that are actually sending us data. What they did was took the institution names and from our institution database instead of looking at the data that we're receiving. But that'll be fixed really quickly. So I can go in here and pick a student and oops, wrong. So go to the last name. And get a student and choose one. So Mary Kennedy, grade 11. Okay. We'll say that's who I want. And unfortunately, so then I request access to the student record, and this is where it gives me the message that I have to agree to that I have a legitimate education reason to view, download, or request the student's information.
At this point, is this where this goes to the requesting school and the data that says so many people have asked for this information? Is that the trigger?
This when I
agree or disagree.
Right. If I say I agree, then it sends it to the sending school saying, and then we'll get the email. Someone's looking at my stuff, and also they want to request the student's information. Now, what we did find out in this morning is that what happens if you agree, and then you get in, and you go, uh-oh, this wasn't the right student. And so we're going to look at a secondary way to get that, but there'll be some discussions, because if you came in here and I must not have picked a school. Oh, that's right, because this won't happen. This is because I'm accessing, because of the training site, we're accessing multiple I have access to multiple districts, multiple schools. So it's doing the process, and it says transferred. Okay, great. Doesn't really transfer. It's only accessing. Little things like that drive me nuts, but we'll get them fixed. It's just a personal problem, I think. So Mary Kennedy's here. I should be able to see what is going on. Okay. So then I immediately get to see Mary's data. And this is this information. This should be dimmed. Wow. 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 No, still no assessment information, but I keep hoping. There's a little bit of a problem here because if I'm requesting this student, I shouldn't be seeing this. We'll have to see. Most of these, I'm sure, are easy little fixes, and I don't know why it didn't come up in the testing. So, could be something unique to the training database, but I'm not sure. But anyway, the bottom line is I'm looking at the data, and I get to see the data right away. And whether you're getting to see all of it or summary, you should be just seeing the summary here. So, going back, I think, oops, wrong one. So, we're getting a little short on time again, so I'm going to move forward through lesson 4, and we're going to go to approvals. And when you go into the approvals one, you'll see that it has a number up there, as I stated before. That's how many you have waiting for you. It defaults to the approvals tab when you go in if there are approvals waiting. So, and all you have to do to approve one or reject it is you just place a check mark in front of the record that says waiting approval. If you approve it, you just click on it, and it approves it. If you reject it, and here let me show. If you reject it, then you have to deal with the fact that you have to give it a reason why you rejected it. So if I'm here and I reject this one, and it goes, okay, what's your reason for rejecting it? Not my student, or something like that. And so that sends that information. That, as we get the email process set up, that'll go back to the requesting district or requesting school saying it was rejected, and then they can look at that information as to why it was rejected. So, and that's basically the header does the same thing. And you can go into the same thing down here where you have the, well, this one, all it is waiting approval. But when you look at history for this student, you should be able to see that this was rejected. So anyway, that's pretty much it on this screen. You have the information over there, and you're not seeing it very well. Let me go over there. Well, that's not helping. Over on the right side, you'll see it. You see the sending school over here. Yeah. It's probably my resolution on here. On yours, do you see that on yours when you're looking at it? Okay. Requesting in the sending school, so you know who it was sent to and that sort of a thing. I'm going through this a little bit faster than we started, but hopefully everyone's following. If there are any questions, and we can stay and work a little bit later on it. I just know that we said this would be done at 4:30, and I want to make sure we meet that goal. So go look at, where are we on? Lesson 5, I think? So go look at Lesson 5. And there's two parts to Lesson 5, 5A on one page and 5B on the others. And just walk through the approvals. see how the screen works. It's again, it's going to work a lot like the request screen. Try to go in and go ahead and, I would say select one, but as soon as you select one, they're going to go away. So if you go in, if we have a few people selecting them, we'll lose sight of all of them. So you only get 3 or 4. So maybe it's probably best if we just follow the on screen here as far as the process of just going in, finding your student, and approving or rejecting it. Are you sure you want to approve this selection? Yes, that was the one I wanted to do. And then it goes through this process. Once I approve or reject it, it goes, oh. So why did it get rid of all of them? Maybe somebody else actually approved them out there too, huh? Either that or someone else is still playing around on my earlier session that's gone in and approved them. So could be. I don't think that was a glitch in the system. I think that just somebody approved it. So that process is it for the approvals. It's not. I hope what you're seeing here is that this is fairly easy to use. Okay. The last screen we're going to look at today is the history screen. And basically, what this tells you is whether records are approved and rejected and who's done it, when the last thing happened, the SSID, some student information, and then the requesting and sending schools. And then you can view details, more details on this. So what you're getting here is you have different statuses that you can look at here. You have waiting approval still, you have rejected, you have the approved ones, the available, viewed. And so if you go in and you view the record from a new student that's coming into your school, that'll be what's logged there. And vertical is what they decided to use at the state for basically sending transcripts. So this vertical means send transcripts, but we may go in and change that eventually to just say send transcripts so it's a little more clear. But that's the vertical transfer going between higher ed and the school versus the horizontal transfer. So when you get this, let's see. So you'll be able to look up, and we can walk through this, but what I'd like you to do is go through and look at your the history information that's showing up, and we'll do that here too. Oops. So if I go into the history tab, so I can see different statuses. I can look at all of the ones that are rejected. I can look at, approved. So that just shows me the ones that were rejected if I'm sending them off and the people are rejecting them. Now there's Mary Kennedy, the one I rejected earlier. And then, we're just the basic information that we went over earlier. And if I want to look at the history of this, I can get a little bit more details. So I think you get most of what you need on this one. Oops, gotta go down. So if I go down here for Mary, I see the request details, and it gives me a little bit more information about Mary and the requesting school and the sending school. As we get your contact information, that'll go in here, so that you'll know if, say, if a record got rejected and their reason didn't seem valid, you'll have right here who you can contact at that end to talk to. So, and the same thing if you don't have school information, you'll at least get district information too. So, then the request history. Oh, okay. So in this case, they said they rejected it because they're staying here. So we approved it and then we rejected it. Probably just different people playing on this student. So for Mary Kennedy, we had a request, we approved it, and then in this case we went back and rejected it. But that's not usually what would happen. You either approve it or reject it, and that'll be it. So you. What does it?
It happens.
Does it? So what? So they say they're taking off. They say they're taking off, and then they come back and say, no, I'm not gonna. Oh, great. It's like, I'm sorry, you can't come back. I know you. Those are the ones you want to keep out. I know. Let me check your discipline records. Okay. You can go in and go into the history screen and try out a couple of the options in there. Again, it follows the same. It's just the information you're going to see is what's here. Be my guest in going through. It's sort of a wrap up. I'll give you a little bit of an idea. We are immediately going into what we're going to call updates, enhancements, and fixes to the current product, because you did see we did have a few glitches out there, and that's to be expected. I mean, when Microsoft sends something out, it's got its own sets of bugs, and that's like I say, happens in development. We wish we would get it perfect the first time out of the chute, but it's not quite there. But the main focus or the function is there, and it's working. I think some of the things that we saw were related to our training database, and some of them are related to there are some process issues that we'll have to fix. So hopefully this piques your interest a little bit on the OSTX application and what it can do, and you get out there and give it a shot and try it out and see what you can do with it, and find some value if there's any issues. We do have, let me give you our support. So if it's a data issue, if the data is missing or incorrect, you contact your regional data warehouse provider, and they'll do the research for you. If it's a problem with our application, you feel it's a problem there, it would be great if you would just call us and let us know. And if you want to get connected to the Oregon University system, that's Lisa's number. And those are the people to contact if you have issues. I sent out a sign-in sheet earlier. Did everyone get a chance to fill it in? Okay, good. Thanks, Megan. With that, if there's any questions, we can. What did I do? I just went. Oh, okay. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to stick around.
I want to go back to assessments. So you're saying we can review the assessments under normal circumstances?
You should be able to, and I mean, because I was last couple days ago was looking at them.
Review it without requesting for approval, because we need to review it right away.
That's the one. That's the thing I've got to get pushed through. You can, if it's your students, you can see their current and historical information, but you need, and that's where I was trying to get them to push through on this, but the project team didn't I guess decide to go ahead, or again, I've got people that haven't got a background in schools, so they're not familiar with the need for some of this, and they think, oh, we got to protect this, but I don't know why, especially in that case. So I will work on that. So thanks everybody for coming, and I look forward to hearing from you, or if there's any problems, or I look forward to checking out and seeing that you maybe have accessed the system when you get back. No, you get your district security administrator they can just go ahead and give you access. You betcha. So and then great, I'd love it if you'd work with it, and if you run into problems, you call our help desk and say, I'm using OSTX and this is not working, or something like that, because we want to get this working. Like I said, we want to get it to be perfect, so there's a value. Yeah, it'll give you a valuable tool that you can continue to use. Thank you.
I have a question for you, because I thought about this because this always comes up in training. So our PESC layout has fields for SAT, ACT, things like that, so we can get them if the data is there. I don't know if you guys are getting that stuff.
We're not always getting